Hello and welcome to A News. I'm Bakhtiar Asanov. Today, the World Economic Forum in Davos is hosting a high-level panel titled Defining Eurasia's Economic Identity. At a time when competing interests from west to east are reshaping the balance of influence across the Caucasus and Central Asia, the region finds itself at the crossroads of ambitious infrastructure projects, emerging trade corridors and growing competition over strategic resources. The discussion focuses on how Eurasia can capitalize on these expanding routes, strengthen its economic role, and navigate a rapidly changing geopolitical and economic landscape. Main speakers of this panel are Van Khachaturian, President of the Republic of Armenia, Ilham Aliyev, President of the Republic of Azerbaijan, and Alexander Vučić, President of Serbia. To unpack the significance of this discussion and what it tells us about Eurasia's future direction, I'm joined now by our colleague Anastasia Lavrina, host of Inside Politics and Frontline. And now we take a look at the panel session.
Is a tremendous benefit to Armenia, to Azerbaijan, to Southern Caucasus, and it sets an example of how the countries which were in very deep hostile terms now transform into phase of cooperation.
Thank you very much, President Khachaturian. The same question to you, please. How do you see it? How do you look in the future now with this whole new era opening? What does the future hold for Armenia?
Thank you very much. Allow me to continue. The thought of line of President Aliyev that the future depends on us. The future depends on the leaders of our two countries. And the leaders of our two countries have already demonstrated their willingness. And as Mr. Aliyev just mentioned, we have demonstrated political will, political courage, that for peace, action can be taken, that can confirm the peace, something that we had not seen for more than 30 years. Suddenly now we are living in that situation. And therefore, it was unbelievable. 2 years ago, 1 year ago, it was unbelievable that we could achieve such a situation. Whereas now, we and the Republic of Armenia is able to receive cargo from Azerbaijan via the territory of Georgia. I'm sure we'll be able one day to receive this cargo directly through our own territories. Baku, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Nakhichevan, Armenia, directly we can have transportation, I am sure, and we'll be able to overcome the problems that were created in the 90s. But what is very important is that we are both looking forward. If we try to look backwards, if we try to look for reasons what happened and why it happened, that will deprive us of the opportunity that we have received. The willingness and readiness from the government of Azerbaijan, Mr. Aliyev, we appreciate it, we can see it. It was today or yesterday that Mr. Aliyev mentioned that we need to learn to live in peace. I can reassure you, it's not a usual situation for us. Before signing these documents, we would wake up and try to find out what's happening on the border. Shootings, death, wounded, stress for us. Now, please be reassured, we are forgetting this. Now we are more living in times where we need to implement projects, and we will succeed. We will succeed because our agreements are very concrete. The principles are very concrete. We do respect each other's territorial integrity, sovereignty, and the jurisdiction. We'll be guided by those principles. We'll open borders. And I'm sure that after some years, not only at the highest political level we'll have such meetings, but also it will become business as usual when our citizens from Armenia and Azerbaijan will cross the border, will do business with each other, will make use of the benefits of each other. And therefore, as a result of this cooperation, will become a very conducive region as the South Caucasus for the entire world. The discussions that we are now having about connectivity between Europe and Asia, the best way to this is South Caucasus. This process will succeed because there is a economic interest as well, not only political. Political is very important, but also economic. And this will enhance and strengthen the agreements that we have achieved on. And I do want to thank the leadership of Azerbaijan, Mr. Aliyev. I do have the right also to say thank you to our Prime Minister as well, because our head of the state is the Prime Minister. I want to thank both for the political will, and the aim of it was one. It can be very well seen now. The aim was peace. Excuse me for my interpretations, it was not to stay on power, it was to live in peace, because for many years, for different political reasons, it was delayed. The process was delayed 30 years, negotiations and no result. But suddenly, when the heads of states of two countries agree over the principles, general principles, we can succeed. Indeed, I have also to mention about the role of Mr. Trump, the President of the United States, who also was able to take the responsibility and was able to, on the 8th of August, arrange the signing of this historic document.
President Vučić, I would like to ask you, how do you see the role of Serbia as somehow this important bridge for Eurasia, bridge between Europe and Asia, when it comes to redefining and defining this economic identity for the region?
Actually, we're witnessing huge changes in today's world. And as a matter of fact, I'm surprised with such a big interest for this panel today, to tell you the truth, because everybody is speaking only about tomorrow's President Trump's appearance and analyzing today's appearances of Ursula von der Leyen and President Macron. I believe that the role of our countries will become even, we all know that we belong to small countries, relatively small nations, speaking about size and numbers, not about our pride and dignity, but I believe that we'll have bigger importance in the future, and I'll tell you why. From Armenia, let's say 3 million, 7 million, Serbia, 10 million, Azerbaijan, we'll have to get along with each other, we'll have to cooperate, we'll have to do things together. Because in today's world where we are facing no rules, no regulations, where big fish eat smaller fishes, and they're saying it, they're not even wrapping it in anything, they just do it, and they're saying, doing it bluntly, and not observing and not in accordance with UN Charter and UN resolutions. We'll have to take care of ourselves. And now you have two different schools. One is either to belong to those big, newly defined empires in different hemispheres, either to still protect your sovereignty and independence. And knowing Azerbaijani people, Armenian people, and Serbian people, I know that we'll pick the option number 2, which means that we'll protect our countries, our nations, our sovereignty, and our independence. Wanting, of course, to cooperate with everybody, but at the end, we'll have to keep our national interests and our statecraft as well. And answering your question, I mean, dear Sasha, that of an utmost importance is to work together, to bound our fates even more than it has ever been the case in the past, that we should work together on AI, innovations, defense sector, and we should have even more often political consultations on different issues. I can say that we consider both countries as friendly countries, not only that. I consider President Khachaturian, I don't know him personally that well as I do President Aliyev, and I consider him as a personal friend as well. And I hope that we'll be able to build this kind of relationship with all the others. But when we are together, you know, we are much stronger. And Caucasus countries they became like a key intermediary, but also the meeting points between Europe and Asia. And as a matter of fact, we are all three members of EPC, European Political Community. We are on EU path a bit more advanced than some Caucasus countries, but you know, we are pretty much in the same situation. And we'll have to have the same path. And I believe that our collaboration and our cooperation, because we are facing a lot of disruptions, economic disruptions from pandemic, inflation, chain supplies, then tariffs, sanctions, whatever you can imagine. And this is why we need to bound ourselves, to connect ourselves, speaking about road infrastructure, railway infrastructures, digital economy, and also I think that speaking about innovations, IT sector, and AI at the end is something that will create stronger bonds between us than everything before that. And I believe in our true friendship, but also in our big interests to bounding and to connecting us much stronger and, dare to say, much faster in the future.
Thank you, President. Özdemir, the President's touched upon a little bit the investment side and the business side of it, and it would be great to hear, please, from your take. What's your view regarding the policies and probably the strategies needed to strengthen Eurasia's competitiveness, as well as ultimately also the integration in the global picture, in the global trade?
Thank you very much. And I'm here not only as the chair of LIMAC, but I have two more hats. One is I'm the chair of the governors of the Building Environment and Infrastructure Community in World Economic Forum, where we have many infrastructure and contractor investors and also builders. And also I'm a representative of Turkey. So, you know, being in this forum, I think I have to say a couple of things about that relationship as well. And I think the investments can only start when there's peace and long-term stability. I mean, if there's no stability, nobody wants to invest. So hearing the leaders here, and I'm very happy to be among these very strong leaders, that the peace and prosperity are going to be long-term, it means investors can come. And I've seen the TRIP agreement. It's very well defined. And it's the first start of, I think, the major investments can start from that agreement. Mm-hmm. Because currently there is Kars-Tbilisi project already, Baku project. And I think with the middle corridor, then we can add more to this. So what I'm saying is the infrastructure is not only the roads, it's not only the railroads, it's the digital infrastructure, it's the energy infrastructure as well. And also it brings out many more infrastructures. I mean, the dry ports, the logistical hubs, and the people. I mean, people start to come and live around it. So there is a big opportunity here, and seeing all the leaders are, you know, positive on that. I think the first probably investments going to take will be the PPPs, because now we are building a lot of things around the world with public-private partnerships. And in this regard, I'm sure that there's probably the IFIs will take the lead, you know, the IFCs and European investment banks, the FC from US, because there's a big US angle here. And then the private investors will come on board. I mean, seeing this here, I think it's very positive because, you know, we are talking a lot about geo-economical risks, geopolitical risks, but I'm very happy to be a part of this panel where there is a big positivity that's coming towards, you know, this cooperation in our region, where I think there's a very big cooperation possibilities.
If I may
Yes?
intervene regarding some good words said by Madame Özdemir, if I pronounce that well.
Perfect.
We are speaking about peace, stability, tranquility. There has never been less peace, stability, and tranquility in the world. Last year was the worst year after the Second World War, with number of wars that were launched by different countries or within the countries. And this year is going to be worse than last year. And next year is going to be worse than this year. And everybody is speaking about peace, accusing someone else for not observing something, not paying respect to someone, but at the end, everybody is taking care of its own national interests. Nobody cares about multilateralism, and this is the biggest mistake that all of us made in the past, and now no one can correct it. If you expect that President Trump tomorrow will say, okay, I fully align with the words of Ursula von der Leyen, that is not going to happen. That is not going to happen at all, and everybody knows it. Everybody knows it in advance. And then, what would be the consequences for all the others? There are people that might say, even in our countries, in Yerevan, Baku, Belgrade, they might say, okay, it's somewhere away from us, but there is a spillover effect, and we are all going to face the consequences. And that's why I was speaking about creating better bonds between us in order to make these shocks relatively smaller to our economies and to our politics as well. And I'm not optimistic at all. We have just entered the world of volatility and uncertainty, and not sure that we'll be able to overcome it in the years to come. Sorry that I was saying this just because I saw, this is my 12th time in Davos. I'm a veteran here. There are no people here around us that were present here for so many times. I have never seen so many people, to tell you the truth. And people are not applauding to anyone. People here are because they are concerned about their future. Company representatives, state leaders, prime ministers, members of governments, whoever. And nobody's jubilant. Nobody's not laughing, nobody's smiling. Because people don't know what tomorrow will bring to our countries. And of course that we do worry a lot, but connecting us, bounding us, this is a solution for us. At least we cannot diminish, but we can decrease the pressure on our country, and we can find some good solutions as a common denominator for all our smaller countries in Eurasia region. Sorry that I
would like to pick up on that. And I would specifically want also to pick up on, you said nobody cares about multilateralism and it's all about the national interest.
Everybody's speaking about it.
Yes, and I would like to address that to President Aliyev, please. What's your take? How do you then see this solution as president, which you just said, regarding how do you survive and how do you try to soften the stress of the current shocks in the world where the current shape and phase of multilateralism is not just changing, but it's not working that well?
I think that everything is in our hands. It depends on your agenda. It depends on your vision, on your strategic vision for the future. Coming back to peace with Armenia, and prior to that, 30 years of conflict, we really had a very difficult times as a country, as a nation, losing territories, million people homeless and internally displaced. But we did not lose hope. We did not lose our courage to try to restore justice, international law, and our sovereignty. It took us 30 years. International institutions at that time, I mean 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago and now, their behavior didn't change. We have changed. We stopped believing in someone who will come and fix things for us. All our hopes for international mediation totally collapsed. United Nations Security Council, the highest international body, adopted 4 resolutions demanding withdrawal of Armenian troops from our territory. They were on paper. OSCE and other international institutions adopted numerous resolutions. All of them did not materialize until we took situation into our hands. And we did it. We restored justice, international law, our sovereignty, territorial integrity, and then we achieved peace. And then we stopped. And for the leader of the country, which suffered for 30 years, to stop at the right time is a very responsible and very important decision. We could have continued. I want to be very open with you and with the audience, but that would lead to endless wars. That would lead to more sufferings, more victims. Then war would never end, and someone should have stopped it. And we decided to stop it. And yes, it was a joint decision by Armenian and Azerbaijani leadership to close that chapter and to see the opportunities for peace. And we, as I said, I think with a record speed from war, from serious military clash of September 2023, we came to August 2025, when Prime Minister of Armenia and myself signed the declaration, and the peace deal was initialed in front of President Trump. And President Trump signs the declaration as a witness. And as I said, we put an end to this war in the office #1 of the world. We should not rely on international institutions. I agree with Alexander that today this situation maybe is more severe than ever before. But I do not share his certain pessimism, because if you take situation under control, if you are dedicated to your national interests and to the future of the nation you are leading, then you can achieve success. But with respect to the issues of multilateralism, unilateralism, protectionism, we see that everything is crumbling. Mm-hmm. World Trade Organization is crumbling. By the way, Azerbaijan did not join WTO, though we've been invited for 30 years, just because we want to have economic sovereignty. We want to have political sovereignty, at the same time having good relations with numerous interlocutors. Look, we have strategic partnership documents signed with 10 members of European Union, comprehensive strategic partnership agreement signed with China, strategic partnership charter is being discussed with the United States, and all this is possible. It does not contradict one another when you have a clear vision for your country, for your future, when you have power, when you have consolidated society, and when you do what is right, regardless who says what and who will publish some articles about you and what you are doing. So I'm more optimistic, especially in our case with Armenia. Probably it's one of the unique cases when we have real peace after 3 decades of war and bloodshed.
And is this peace which, of course, enables all the rest of economic cooperation and prosperity. President Khachaturian, what's your take on this when it comes to this new approach, as we've heard now from President Vučić and also President Aliyev, switching the approach and changing from multilateralism but more into caring more for your sovereign interest, and in this case going into country with country?
Thank you. Thank you indeed. I want to say that we managed to achieve the peace document because the two political leaders of the two countries were ready to this. This helped for the resolution of the issue. Otherwise, I do have to agree with Mr. Aliyev that it would have continued forever. It would have continued forever with a future that promises nothing. Until now, I cannot understand or accept the political approach that leads to wars and human losses. the biggest losses we had since 1988. That's the human losses. We can never recover these losses. Therefore, we can work hard with our abilities and capabilities. We can recover and rehabilitate the material losses, but not the human losses. Therefore, the role of the political leaders is very important for peaceful resolution of the issues. It depends on your courage, on the courage of the leaders, on the ability to put aside the temporary issues and look forward to the strategic points. This will condition the success of the countries. Thanks God, the leaders of our two countries chose this path, the future, the peace of our countries, and the well-being of the people. This stands up and higher than anything else. These are not just words. I'm one of the politicians who has always spoken about peace. In my political activities, I've always tried to be useful for peace, because I understand one thing clearly. If you have neighbors, only live in peace with your neighbors, including in your daily life. There's no other way. Other way means arguing, fighting, disputes, loss of time. I am therefore optimistic that we will indeed succeed. We will indeed also have joint economic and cultural projects. We will indeed have, and we already have the precedents when the members of the civil society of our two countries meet. Business circles next will meet. In Yerevan, people can already buy Azerbaijani fuel for their cars. Years ago, if you would speak about this, there would have been hostile reaction to this. But this is the new reality we live in. And therefore, as for the problems of the world, there is a lot of volatility in the world. After COVID, a lot of things have changed. And the political map of the world is changing a lot. And the management methods are changing a lot. And therefore, especially in this situation, the small countries face challenges, but I do not want to underestimate them. Being small may also be an advantage. It allows us to act and take decisions independently ourselves and implement them independently ourselves. You may be surprised and asked, what about the big countries? Big countries have big problems. We have our countries, our interests, our action to be taken for our interests. I do not recommend to anyone, especially if no one asks, I'm only giving an opinion saying that if a country has a strategy, has a clear position about its own future, and the mechanisms for those actions of implementation, indeed, we will be able to overcome these difficult situations. I don't want to underestimate the problems we have. I just don't also want to make them over-exaggerated. I don't want to pretend that it's unresolvable. I don't want to pretend that the world is turning around. No, the world has seen even worse situations, even more losses. The world has been able to overcome even the worst. And for example, European Union is an outcome of the World War II. After World War II, the agreement was signed about the establishment and formation of the European Union, which means that there are no enemies forever. There are interests, that's what they say in politics. But these interests have to do with the economic development of our countries, with our well-being, with friendly and peaceful and good relations with our neighbors. Same goes about Turkey. The issues, if we try to look for them, we'll find them, but there's no need to look for them. We have a neighbor as Turkey. We need to be neighbors with them. We need to open the borders. Same with Iran, same with Georgia. I'm just bringing example about Armenia. There are different approaches. There are different assessments about these events and developments in all these countries. But in the end of the day, we also have the interest of the Republic of Armenia that aligns with the principle of peace and friendly relations with neighbors and to be useful to each other, which is a mutual interest. Thank you.
Would you comment on that as well?
Yes,
And I would like to add very quickly for you as well. Is that the solution as well? Is that a better approach following everything that the presidents just said, that not going into the blocs, not going into the bigger alliances, but going into, taking care of national interests, economic interests as well, not just political, and going into rather bilateral dynamic there?
I'm going to speak about the region because this region has developed less and it deserves much more. I mean, we could have done much more in this region. And, if I speak from the Turkey's perspective, I know our president, Erdogan, is supporting this. And, we have to do this together so that the stakes of all the countries and the investments of all the countries go together, that we will not be able to lose it. Because if we can create a big silo of a business and where everybody has stakes in it, then it will be very hard to break this peace. So I think from the business-wise and from the investment-wise, we have to develop these corridors, the digitals, the transportations and so forth, so that we'll be able to bring all these things that we are producing from Turkey and towards Europe. I mean, at this moment, I'm very optimistic because there's so much being done between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and Turkey will be an accelerator and a guarantor of this. And then hopefully our border will be opened. We have a very long-term relationship with Azerbaijan. I mean, they're our brothers. There's Georgia here. And I think this time we have to, and at this panel as well, we have to think and invest more regionally. I mean, what we can do and what we haven't done before, and what can we do better? Because I see that there's peace and there's stability. Why not investments should be there? And at Turkey, and by the way, is a bigger, if you call it, I mean, we are not small, but we are kind of big country. And we're after, I mean, we are behind this with, our president says the same thing. And the Turkish business community, I can assure that we will be behind this partnership and in this investments.
It's a very interesting dynamic as the Eurasian region and as the countries that you're representing here, strengthening the cooperation between each other for the region, as you said. The global geopolitical sort of picture in the landscape looks completely different. There is not strengthening, there's rather cracking and shaking. And I would like to get that as a closing remarks for all of you speakers, please. How do you see with this challenging and shaking and rather fragile global landscape, how do you see then the place of Eurasia in that picture? President Aliyev.
Well, Eurasia is a very big geographical environment. What we're thinking about is, of course, our region and our immediate neighborhood. And I'm very glad that during the years of independence, we managed to establish very close working relations with all our neighbors, of course, except Armenia, due to the reasons we all know. But now, after peace de facto is established, we started also economic cooperation, export operations. Azerbaijan lifted all the restrictions on transportation of cargos to Armenia from Kazakhstan, from Russia. And now we got a request from Armenian side to provide transit from Armenia to Russia. So we de facto unilaterally opened the corridors. Yes, the transportation goes through Georgia, but one day it will go through Armenia. One day Armenia will go directly through Azerbaijan, and that day is not too far away. We established a very close alliance relationship with Turkey, which is a brotherly country. And we have a huge investments in Turkey. Our investments in Turkey are more than $20 billion US. We are one of the biggest investors in Georgia. With TRIP and the connectivity project, which United States now is supervising, we will establish a new transportation corridor stretching from Asia across the Caspian through Azerbaijan, Armenia, part of Azerbaijan, which is Nakhchivan, Turkey, and further down to Europe, in addition to the existing corridors through Georgia. So the more routes, the better for consumers, for suppliers, for transit countries. So we as a country, we always concentrate on our regional agenda. And if we cannot achieve what we want in the region, we cannot have any aspirations for any kind of a global event. But today, especially after parallel tracks of Armenian Azerbaijan and Turkish Armenian rapprochement, which go in parallel and definitely will end in parallel by establishment of diplomatic relations between Turkey and Armenia, Azerbaijan and Armenia at the same time, we are changing the broad geographical area, part of Eurasia, which is very important for connectivity, for energy security, for peace, for stability, and which sets the example of how long-lasting wars and conflicts can transform into partnership and cooperation.
President Hachitara, would you take and comment with your closing remarks on that, please?
It's difficult to add anything to the words that Mr. Aliyev just mentioned, because I have to repeat the same thing, because that aligns with our imagination, that aligns with our moods. Moreover, in this changing world, very important is both the Middle Corridor's role, the South Caucasus role. The new logistic opportunities are becoming more and more important, and in this regard, our region is becoming more and more important for the European Union, for the European countries, but also for the Far East, etc., etc. There are a lot of parallels happening in the Central Asia capability building. Central Asia is being also intensively putting in use its capacity. Azerbaijan for many years has been providing transit opportunities. Armenia will soon get these opportunities. These are all alternatives that will allow people, businesses, to choose from what is more beneficial for them. But when we look at such opportunities, we always look at transport, railroad, vehicle. But that's not the only thing. This is also energy. This is also the new technologies. This is also cable. This is also internet. This is also service provision across borders, because the entire world is changing. The content of economy is changing. And therefore, when we look at the maps, the most convenient road has always been via and through our region. That has been the Silk Road, one of the Silk Roads, one of the most efficient and effective roads that has worked out well. For some reason, it has been terminated or not used in the past 30 years, or after 91, it was not used. But still, I have to repeat and reassure that here, I do see the basis to be optimistic for the future, because most importantly, there is the political will and the political decision. And therefore, we have to make sure it continues. We have to make sure we establish diplomatic relations with Azerbaijan, diplomatic relations with Turkey. Those will be most conducive factors. And of course, we have to also ensure that between our citizens, between our nations, they also get engaged. They also participate in these processes. This is a process of work that demands time. If the president, the prime minister, in a very short period of time, in only 2 years, managed to agree about the main principles, the same to expect from the society so fast will be naive, because they have to be able to overcome the issues that for one reason or another are out there. So I do hope that both countries, Armenia and Azerbaijan, will do and will continue to work in this regard, in order for our citizens, in order for our society to be more engaged in these processes, to participate more in these processes, in the lasting peace that we have initiated. It's not a temporary peace. Mr. Aliyev also confirmed it's a lasting peace.
With your closing thoughts.
Thank you very much. I learned a lot about the situation in Southern Caucasus today, and very happy for my friends. And yes, it's very easy to say that we're gonna increase the level of our cooperation. Happy to say that we are about to finish agreement on gas-fired power plant in Ish. Azerbaijan's investment together with Serbian state around 600 million. it would be, and at the same time we are about to establish direct flight between Belgrade and Baku. We have already done that with Tbilisi, and hopefully we'll do that with Yerevan as well. It means that Serbia is trying to lean itself and trying to rely itself furthermore, not only to the west but to the east and to the friends that we can always count on. I just partly disagree with the great leader Ilhan Aliyev on something. He's one of the most capable leaders and sovereign leaders, which is a very rare case, but a spillover effect will harm us a lot. I'll tell you why, more than Azerbaijan, of course, because we have a lot of German companies, French companies, Italian companies that are producing spare parts. If they will face bigger tariffs from the United States of America, which is the main market for those companies, it will mean that we'll have to shut down our factories, our plants in Serbia. And at the same time, there is a political issue. I see that we are coming to an end of a session. Everybody used to have its own Pandora's box. Now everybody is speaking about new Pandora's box. The real Pandora's box was open on Kosovo issue, when many countries in the world, Western world in particular, recognized and acknowledged an independence of Kosovo, saying, well, this was because of humanitarian disaster that was caused by alleged Serbian authorities' action in Kosovo. And at the end, you can see the same arguments are used by all the others that are doing against the other countries. But everybody is forgetting when it started. And now why I'm afraid and why I'm saying that I'm not that optimistic is the fact that we are having more regional and local wars than ever. You have no certainty even in the Gulf region, as it not used to be the case till last few months. And also need to say that this divorce between US and Europe is not going to be just a temporary issue. It's going to last for quite a more time, and at the end we'll all have to pay the price. Whether we'll be able to take care of ourselves, I hope that we'll be able to do it better than some others, but are we going to be hit? No doubt that we're going to be hit, but with the support and with the help, with the assistance of such a good friends like Armenia and Azerbaijan, and hopefully Turkey as well, will be able to overcome all these difficulties.
Thank you. Ebru, you've been the voice of optimism at this
Yes,
session.
I was going to
That's your
say that
closing,
again.
yes.
I'm an optimist because as business leaders, we have to be optimists. And seeing this, the peace environment and stability in our region, we will build on it. I mean, what we'll do is as the builders and contractors and investors, we are very happy to be building on this peace and long-term stability.
Without peace, it is impossible.
Yes, exactly. So,
all of us need a peace.
Thanks so much to the speakers. Unfortunately, I wish we had more time. Thank you very much for participating. Thank you for being here. And thank you for watching this live. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam.
We've been watching Defining Eurasia's Economic Identity panel session, which is being held at the World Economic Forum in Davos. The main speakers of the event were President of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, the President of Serbia, Alexander Vučić, and the President of Armenia, Vahan Khachaturian. And now we continue with our very own Anastasia Lavrina, host of Inside Politics and Frontline programs. So Anastasia, let's continue with you. What are your key takeaways from this panel session? And also, what can you say about the role of these countries in Eurasia's emerging economic identity?
Well, I will say for the beginning that this is a very important panel discussion which brought together so many people to understand the reality of the South Caucasus. And you yourself could see that all participants are very optimistic about the future, about the processes which is taking place today in the South Caucasus. Listening what President of Armenia was saying in this panel discussion, I was a bit surprised because he was repeating what actually President Aliyev used to speak within the last years, since the time of the end of the patriotic war, 44 days patriotic war in November 2020. I guess you yourself remember how President Aliyev was mentioning the importance of cooperation, the importance of peace agenda, not only for Baku, for Azerbaijan, but for Armenia, to become a transit country, to become a beneficiary of the economic and energy perspectives. Then also for the transport and logistics, Zangezur corridor, which is also being named as a Trump corridor in Washington. So today Armenia itself is speaking about the benefits it can gain from this cooperation. So this, I guess, it's very important elements. Tremendous, as it was mentioned, tremendous benefits for Azerbaijan and Armenia, first of all, for the region itself. Armenia has a chance now to become also a hub in the region, being a part of Zangezur corridor connecting Azerbaijan and Nakhichevan Autonomous Republics to the territory of modern Armenia. Zangezur corridor is a part of a global initiative, Middle Corridor, which is connecting Central Asia, South Caucasus, then Armenia, Azerbaijan and Turkey, then Europe itself. And we cannot ignore the fact that Middle Corridor is a part of a broader agenda, China's Belt and Road. So you can imagine how it's prosperous for the countries in the region itself. Then obviously, definitely the participants also highlighted the role of Donald Trump. I guess it was referred to the meeting held in Washington on 8th of August last year, when there was latest agreement reached by Azerbaijan and Armenia. And after just some months, there was some shift from the discussion to the practical means of what was achieved. If I'm not mistaken, just some days before, there was a document, important document, not binded, but still very important document spread by the State Department, agreement reached by Armenia and United States to the practical implementation of the so-called Trump corridor or Zangezur corridor. How exactly it's going to be implemented? There is no specific date when it's going to start, but it means that Donald Trump practically is paying specific attention to the developments in the region of the South Caucasus. And just imagine the Davos Economic Forum, a very important platform where everybody is expected to listen what will be the final reform about the development around the United States and Greenland. Everybody was expecting to speak more about Ukraine, but then Greenland came on the agenda. And in this important platform, Armenia and Azerbaijan are being discussed. I guess it's also a very important signal to the global agenda that South Caucasus, it's not only the region for three countries here, but it's also have a specific importance for Asia, for Europe from the economic and connectivity perspectives. And I guess another very, very important element which cannot be ignored, it's a decision of small countries, as it was mentioned by President Vučić, to rely on themselves, to its power, to the economic, to the national interests, to the protection of sovereignty. This is very important, because if you rely on yourself, if you do everything to make sure your people are benefiting from the economic and energy perspective you can provide for them, not referring to the interests of the global powers, that's what exactly helps you to move forward, to protect your territorial integrity and not to be dependent on any global power and any global, let's say, global processes which is taking place in each part of the world.
Anastasia, as you have mentioned the Trump route, how our neighboring countries view this project?
I guess Zangezur corridor or Trump corridor plays a specific interest for the countries in the region, even China, I would say. And I was a bit surprised, but still it was good surprise for me to read from that document, which was spread by State Department, that this Trump route to be a part of the global project's Middle Corridor. It was Azerbaijan who started to speak about this corridor in 2020. Then, of course, we received the full support from brotherly Turkey, from Central Asian states, and we cannot ignore the interests of European countries who are willing to diversify it. Zangezur corridor or the Middle Corridor, it's not only about the goods and logistics, it's also about future possible, let's say, cooperation within renewables or energy projects. It's about new perspectives for Europe to diversify its dependence. Therefore, how exactly and when it will be implemented, it plays an important role and interest of all countries in the European Union. what we see for today is that the small countries indeed started to play an important role. You know, there is a specific theory that if countries are involved in economic, let's say, integration and prosperity, it reduces the possibility of any confrontation in the future. We cannot refer to what we have here today as a peace for forever. We do have to invest more to make sure that we do have it long lasting, and we have to invest in that. Doesn't matter, now we have Donald Trump in Washington. Who will be the next president of the United States? We do not know, and what will be his attitude to the processes in the South Caucasus. So now it's a very good time for all countries here to unite the efforts and to make sure that we have independent, stable and successful, mutually beneficial and mutually respective policy. From this time then, probably exactly the way how Azerbaijan and Armenia can move from confrontation to the long-lasting peace in the region and mutually beneficial. The cargo already comes from Azerbaijan through Georgia and then to Armenia. And it was mentioned now that probably in near future there will be an open cooperation, I mean through the border of Azerbaijan and Armenia, meaning that there is a perspective for cooperation in between of Armenia and Turkey, without, I mean, the third countries. As President Aliyev mentioned, we do have many projects together with Georgia and Turkey, and now there is a time to have a direct cooperation with Armenia. The cargo is moving from Azerbaijan, I mean, from Russia and Kazakhstan through Azerbaijan, Georgia to Armenia, and there is a perspective for the same routes, vice versa. The products, the cargo from Armenia can proceed through the territory of Azerbaijan to Russia, to Iran, to Kazakhstan. So we see the practical perspectives on how the countries are moving from the long-term confrontation and the war to the time of economic prosperity and beneficiaries. And it's very important that Armenian side, as it was mentioned by President of Armenia, accept this new geopolitical reality and willing to work together with Azerbaijan for the prosperous future.
And also from World Economic Forum in Davos, what should Davos take away from Eurasia?
Well, as I mentioned before, that this panel discussion is being held on the World Economic Forum in Davos. It's already a very good achievement, as it allows people in the world, those who are there or who are joining online, to understand what is really happening in the region of the South Caucasus, how the peace process is being developed, and to understand that Azerbaijan was able to create this new reality in the region. Yes, now everybody is speaking about the international law, the human rights, the protection, the United Nations Charter. We do still have the United Nations, and we do have the meetings where the leaders, where the heads of the states are trying to analyze the reality in different parts of the world. But the reality of today is that the countries have to rely on themselves. As it was mentioned by President Aliyev, we tried to work from the international institutions. We were willing to receive any kind of help, and there were 4 resolutions of the United Nations Security Council requiring the immediate withdrawal of Armenian troops from Azerbaijani land since 1993. But unfortunately, nothing happened. The resolution was adopted by the OSCE Minsk Group and some other international institutions who were trying to bring 2 countries on the table of negotiations to bring the peace in the region. But it was Azerbaijan who used its force, its power, its understanding of the reality and perspectives, economic perspective for the region, to end the war, end the conflict. As President Aliyev mentioned, we could move forward, we could continue the war, but it was right time and right understanding that we should stop here and we should start to form this new reality in accordance with the new reality within the international standards and international law. What we have now, a very good achievement, but it was the first lesson which Azerbaijan showed to the global world, that this is the time when we have to change our understanding of the global politics, this new global reality. And now it's a time for small countries, it's a time for everybody to understand that if you want to be visible, you have to be strong, and you have to have a good relations with your neighboring countries. You should not allow any global powers to intervene into your domestic policy, and you yourself, you do not need to intervene into the processes which is taking place in other parts of the world. The consequences are visible, but if you want to have a stable and prosperous country, then you should do your best to form friendly relations and economic, mutually beneficial relations with the countries with whom you still have the process in that.
Anastasia Lavrina, thank you very much for your comprehensive insights. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me.
That wraps up this edition of A News. I'm Bakhtiar Sanov, and stay tuned to A News for more.